What if the most effective way to silence someone isn't to threaten them, isn't to lock them up, isn't even to make them disappear? What if the most effective way to destroy someone is to convince them they already know the truth? Because once a person believes they've uncovered a hidden reality, they stop questioning the source of the information. They stop doubting the story. And slowly, without realizing it, they begin to doubt everything else. In the early 1980s, a respected American scientist and businessman living near a highly sensitive U.S. Air Force base became convinced he had stumbled onto the greatest secret in human history. Alien visitors, underground bases, secret treaties between non-human intelligence and the U.S. government. His name was Paul Bennewitz, and according to later testimony, government documents, and admissions from intelligence insiders, the threat he posed was never that he knew too much. It was that he was too close. Paul Bennewitz was not a fringe believer shouting into the void. He was an engineer, a businessman, a man trusted enough to hold government contracts. Before his name became synonymous with one of the darkest chapters in UFO history, Bennewitz lived a relatively quiet, successful life in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He ran a technology company specializing in electronic equipment, including work that intersected with military and defense interests. By all public accounts, he was methodical, intelligent, and deeply grounded in science. His home sat only a few miles from Kirtland Air Force Base, a sprawling and highly classified installation that housed nuclear weapon storage, advanced aircraft testing, electronic warfare programs, and experimental technologies still unknown to the public at the time. This proximity would change everything. In the late 1970s, Bennewitz began noticing strange lights in the night sky. Not the occasional flicker or passing aircraft, but consistent, repeating patterns. Lights that hovered, lights that maneuver in sharp angles, lights that appeared at the same times in the same areas night after night. Most people would shrug and move on. Bennewitz didn't. He was an engineer, and engineers don't guess, they learn. He began setting up monitoring equipment at his home: radio receivers, signal analyzers, recording devices. What he found only deepened the mystery. Unusual radio transmissions filled his receivers, signals that appeared encrypted, repeating sequences that didn't match commercial or civilian frequencies. Some transmissions seemed to originate from the direction of the base. Others appeared to come from the surrounding desert. The lights in the sky often coincided with spikes in signal activity. To Bennewitz, this wasn't random noise. This was communication, and once he framed it that way, everything else fell into place. He concluded that what he was witnessing wasn't advanced military testing. It was extraterrestrial activity. Bennewitz became convinced that alien craft were operating in and around Kirtland Air Force Base, possibly using underground facilities hidden beneath the deserts of New Mexico. He believed these entities were monitoring human activity, conducting experiments, and abducting civilians. Today, those ideas are deeply woven into UFO culture. At the time, they were radical, but not unheard of. The 1970s had been a golden age of UFO sightings, government distrust after Watergate, and rising interest in the possibility of non-human intelligence. Still, Bennewitz didn't rush to the media. He went to the Air Force. He reported his findings through official channels, believing that if something truly anomalous was happening near a sensitive military installation, authorities would want to know. That decision marked the beginning of the end. Instead of dismissing Bennewitz outright, military intelligence took an interest. And that's where the story takes its darkest turn. According to later testimony, including statements made by former Air Force Office of Special Investigations agent Richard Doty, Bennewitz was not discouraged from his conclusions. He was encouraged. Doty and others have claimed that Bennewitz was deliberately fed false information as part of a counterintelligence operation. Documents that appeared official, verbal confirmations of alien presence, elaborate stories about underground bases, secret treaties, and joint human-alien operations. Why would anyone do this? The most widely accepted explanation among researchers is not disclosure, but distraction. Bennewitz's monitoring equipment had likely picked up on real, highly classified military activity. Electronic warfare tests, drone operations, advanced signal experiments. Programs the Air Force desperately wanted to keep secret during the Cold War. Rather than confront him or confiscate his equipment, actions that might raise suspicion or legal challenges, intelligence officials allegedly chose a subtler route. They redirected his curiosity. If Bennewitz believed the signals were alien, he would stop asking the right questions about human technology. And at first, the strategy worked perfectly. Authority figures validated his fears, confirmed his suspicions, expanded his theories. But what started as misdirection soon became something far more dangerous. Once Bennewitz accepted the alien narrative, his worldview shifted. Every unexplained sound, every flickering light, every radio anomaly became part of a vast hidden war happening just beneath the surface of everyday life. He believed aliens were abducting civilians from nearby communities. He believed the government was complicit or powerless. He believed he was under surveillance. He believed his life was in danger. And if those beliefs sound extreme, it's important to pause and ask an uncomfortable question. How would any human mind respond if trusted authority figures confirmed your worst fears? Bennewitz began installing elaborate security systems around his home. He monitored neighbors. He recorded everything. He sent increasingly frantic reports to officials, warning of impending disasters and alien plans. The line between investigation and obsession disappeared. Friends and colleagues noticed changes. His behavior became erratic. Conversations circled endlessly around the same fears. The man who once trusted instruments and data now trusted only his conclusions. The disinformation had worked too well. By the mid-1980s, Paul Bennewitz's mental health collapsed. He was hospitalized with symptoms consistent with paranoia and psychosis. His business suffered and eventually failed. His reputation, once solid and professional, was quietly erased. And perhaps most tragically, he never learned the full truth. Years later, long after the damage was done, admissions began to surface. Richard Doty and other insiders publicly acknowledged that Bennewitz had been intentionally misled. That false UFO narratives had been used as a counterintelligence strategy. That the goal was never to help him, but to control the direction of his beliefs. It's important to be precise here. There is no definitive proof that every detail of Bennewitz's story was orchestrated by a coordinated government conspiracy. Some researchers argue that Doty exaggerated his role. Others believe Bennewitz already held fragile beliefs that were merely reinforced, not created. But what is widely accepted is this: false information was given. Authority figures played along. And no meaningful attempt was made to stop the psychological harm once it began. Paul Bennewitz died in 2003. There was no apology, no official acknowledgement of wrongdoing, no compensation. His story faded into the background noise of UFO lore, often cited, rarely understood, and yet its influence is everywhere. Many modern conspiracy theories, underground bases, secret alien treaties, hidden wars beneath the Earth's surface, can trace their roots directly back to this case. Not because they were true, but because they were planted. The Bennewitz case forces us to confront a disturbing possibility. That misinformation doesn't just confuse, it reshapes reality. When people talk about psychological warfare, they often imagine foreign enemies or propaganda campaigns aimed at distant populations. But Bennewitz reminds us that psychological operations don't require mass audiences. Sometimes they only need one mind. And once that mind fractures, the ripple effects can last generations. So was Paul Bennewitz a victim? Or a warning? A warning about how easily belief can be weaponized. About how trust and authority can be exploited. About how the human mind, when isolated and affirmed in its fears, can collapse under the weight of manufactured certainty. The real conspiracy in this story may not be aliens at all. It may be control. Control through confirmation. Control through narrative. Control through the illusion of truth. And if that makes you uncomfortable, maybe it should. Because the most dangerous lies are not the ones we're forced to believe. They're the ones we choose. Because someone powerful told us we were right. If this story left you questioning where information ends and manipulation begins, you're not alone. And it's only the beginning. In our next video, we'll explore another case where belief, secrecy, and authority collide in ways that still shape how we see reality today. Until then, keep asking questions.